Disneyland finally has its Tiana's Bayou adventure, and guess what? Even though we thought this thing was going to have even more time to go through the prototype phase, it sounds like this thing is more broken than its Disney World equivalent. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, but here with me is the man who has done all the groundwork on this one, Mr. VashSky. Mr. Vash, are you a tiny little frog that for some reason has been turned large and small and large and small again?
Yes, I'm a tiny little frog who's just been turned small. Why? I have no idea, but apparently I turned big again because guess what, Jonas? The bigger splash you make, the bigger splash you'll make at the bayou. I'm not quite sure how that all works.
It's something about a party, something about Mardi Gras. They don't really say Mardi Gras, but also the special spice was you all along. But we're not talking about eating frogs. Vash, what's up with Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Disneyland?
What isn't up with Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Disneyland? That is the real question right here. You can see from some footage that we received on X that this is the finale scene. It works about as well as you could expect right there. The lighting is a little dimmer than its Walt Disney World counterpart from the video that I've seen, but I guess, yeah, it's all right. It's fine. The things are moving, and it looks all to be presented quite well. But unfortunately, that's about the best you'll see of this attraction because wow, it has been having non-stop issues. So the first day on Monday, previews, it broke down not once but twice. So I'm sure that was an enjoyable experience for everybody that was there. About an hour and 40 minutes into the first preview session, it broke down for about 2 hours.
Well, now I do want to point out, breaking down only twice, that would indicate that it's functioning at a better rate than the Walt Disney World equivalent out there at Magic Kingdom. So maybe a 2-hour downtime, not as good overall. But
well, I guess I should clarify. This was a partial day, so the previews for annual pass holders didn't start until later in the day. I want to say 3 or so, because it was shared by cast member previews.
Oh, okay. So this is not the first official day. That's the thing that we haven't pointed out here. Cast member previews were actually done very quietly before it was opened up to Magic Key previews. Right. Which then people got into a virtual queue in order to get on the ride. And those are always hit or miss because Disney controls those quite well. So they're saying that the spots filled up in seconds for the virtual queue. And I think we saw the highest number I saw was 30 for boarding groups. What did you see, Vash?
Yeah, that's kind of the highest number that I saw as well. However, a 30 was a backup group. So I think they maxed out in terms of like the ones that they could possibly accommodate to 20, and then everything past that was a backup. And if you thought you were going to get on if you had a backup boarding group, you were sorely mistaken because I believe after the second breakdown, which happened at about 9 p.m., they were like, nope, hard shut off. This is as many people as we're going to get through today. And usually the park, I wasn't sure about the hours for Monday, but I mean, the park regularly stays open around this time, 10, 11, even midnight. So that was most disappointing.
They actually they actually keep the parks open late in California?
They do. That's a big change from Walt Disney World, but they do keep them late on the West Coast.
It must be a magical place out there. Walt Disney World has all those neighbors to worry about as far as staying open late, of course.
Yeah. Well, I remember the days when they used to keep the park open till 1 or 2 a.m. and then the neighbors kind of got a little bit upset about that. But it's one of the big differences out there because there's a local tourist base and passable population, the likes of which exist out there. It really is to balance out the crowds and their visitation habits to kind of spread them out throughout the day. It just wouldn't suffice to stay open with those Florida hours. But you can see right here, even with that partial day, they were only able to get up to about group 30, and they weren't able to accommodate many at all. You can see right here how that was actually conducted. You can see people Oh, is that Dusty? It's Dusty right there. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't notice that before. You can see right here the lines and so forth that were starting to stretch along this section of Rivers of America. It's interesting because they actually closed off the back of Bayou Country, previously Critter Country, and like Pooh, for example, that attraction had to actually be closed down because there was no access that could have been allowed for with this whole setup, because the construction walls are still up on one side, so that limits how many people can fit into this area. It's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. But even if the attraction was working well enough to move your log, let's say, that doesn't mean everything was working well.
Well phrased. Well phrased.
Yes. You can see right here. This is the second lift hill of the attraction. You can see the first Tiana figure that you should be able to see on this, and you can see she's waving to you, but she's not acknowledging you, and she's not giving her spiel that she should be. Apparently, the sensor that triggers her routine when you come upon her for some reason is inoperable. So you can just see her standing awkwardly.
And I'm trying to think whether or not I've actually got the dialogue here for anyone at home. It's something to the effect of, "Welcome, we ought to get along to the party," or something like that. It's very generic, and it's not anything that you would really.
Lewis is waiting for you up the hill there.
Something to that effect. Not really anything that you would do. Oh, okay. Some very inspired dialogue on this ride. It is a theme park attraction. I'm not trying to say that we need to. It's not Ibsen or anything here.
Well, the attraction right next door, though, Jonas, is the Haunted Mansion. In terms of writing, there's a number of existential lines that he wrote into that attraction, especially with that ghost host spiel that are just, they're unforgivable.
Well,
right?
Unforgettable. Unforgettable. Yes.
Unforgettable.
Well, of course, there's always my way. That is a amazing script for a ride, and sometimes we all forget how amazing the Haunted Mansion is. But there's always room for one more. It really just sticks with you. Oh man, it's just perfect. And well, this is not. And forgive me. This is Disney just messing around. They took something that actually worked and they replaced it with something that doesn't. I'm going to repeat what most people have already heard from most of the people who preferred Splash Mountain. I actually like Princess and the Frog. I sing one of the songs from Princess and the Frog to my children almost every night as I sing them to sleep. So I'm one of the people who thinks Tiana is great and that she deserved her own functioning ride.
Yes, I do believe that she deserved her own functioning ride. And if she was actually going to take up residence in Splash Mountain and replace the history and legacy of that attraction, then it should have been done with more care, more time, and possibly even more money. We talk about the dialogue here and how it's just atrocious and it's really low effort for like the Haunted Mansion, not right next door to this attraction. Your cadaverous pallor betrays an aura of foreboding. Come on. I mean, that's some impressive stuff right there. That's not, oh, we're going to go ahead and find a band 50 times, which is really, really something. Even like the small stuff, like the lighting, for example. This is actual show lighting here, folks. This is not like some flash from the camera.
Behind the foliage there?
He is obfuscated by the foliage on his lower half and his eyes. The trees come down just a little bit too far, so it covers his eyes.
Oh, just thinking about those Muppets over there at well, do they actually have the Muppets at Disneyland?
They did at one point.
But, that's right. Because of the the eyes are the most important part of most animation and therefore animatronics. So this is ridiculous to me. Also, these are like $100,000 animatronics, and you can't move the foliage.
Jonas, you're preaching to the choir here. I have no idea why they wouldn't have mapped this out a little bit more definitively, because they have what is called, I believe it's the dish, where they can map out an environment virtually and really get all the details just like squared away. For some reason, you just have just insane oversights with this. But it, besides the bad staging, besides the bad writing and so forth, I mean, you just have a low effort. Like this, for example, I mean, how the Briar Patch obfuscated this whole thing was just a really textbook design. I mean, it really was an awesome feat by those original Imagineers back in the 1980s to achieve that. And well, they got rid of all of that, but they didn't really necessarily replace it with anything else. So that's your view when you actually go down.
So this is a
that river
railing
there.
covered with foliage.
Yes, essentially. I don't know why it's so low effort. Even with some sequences where you have, let's say, like this sequence, for example, you still have those oversized mushrooms and those roots that existed, within Splash Mountain. And I'm convinced that the whole shrinking shtick was just a way to justify those objects and props still being in there without having to remove them and replace them.
Right. I mean, there is a story reason, I will say that, and in their defense, but it's so silly. They should have just, I mean, honestly, they should have just done a book report ride.
Yes, absolutely. And here you go. Here's the shutdown. when the work lights come on and your logs stopped, you can see. Yeah, it's tough. Now, from what I've heard on the Disneyland version, unlike the Walt Disney World version, which I think has more space, the Disneyland version, it moves a little bit too quickly, and that was a problem that I foresaw pretty early on.
So this is a problem that's solved then, obviously.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the definitive version, don't you know, Jonas? Yeah, no, you can see with the work lights on just how everything is staged. You can see it's a little closer together. I think the Bobcat band is on the opposite side of the Bear band or whatever than it is in Florida. But
I'll also point out that this version looks better with the work lights on than the Florida version does with the work lights on. So that's obviously. Are there any technologies that are very tricky and complicated that they haven't mastered yet, like
projections, like that?
Ooh.
It's
oh man. There's actually two things that I view as malfunctioning in this scene, and you wouldn't even notice the other one. But is that a projector or is that a screen right there? I had thought that was a screen, but I guess it's a projector. This is supposed to be flamingos being projected on mist. Do you remember that from documentation that we saw? That this is supposed to be that you're seeing Bayou Mist and Bayou Magic and being able to see all these flamingos dancing all around you. I guess whoever provided that documentation, by the way, that was somebody who had nothing to do with the ride. So I don't know if this is something that, they were sure they were going to get that to function. And here we are, two versions of this ride, and it's still not functioning the way that it's supposed to be functioning.
I need Showcase to get me that clip of like a painter's canvas. We're going to use mist in ways that you've never seen before on an attraction.
We call it Bayou Magic.
We're going to use mist like a painter's canvas to create this amazing sense of aura, which is going to be different from anything that you have seen in an attraction. It's something that I like to refer to as true Bayou magic.
It's because they can't call it voodoo. That's apparently not allowed. And people say it's the Christians who have a problem with voodoo. I'm like, no. I don't think that Christians actually care when you're talking about Mama Odie and, what's his name? Dr. Facilier. Man. There's another piece that, when are they going to get around to putting Dr. Facilier on this ride, Vash?
Never, because they have an aversion to voodoo for whatever reason that it is. Pick your poison. But this is why they've reclassified the voodoo priestess, which is who you just saw right there in the epileptic stages of her existence, I suppose. She was the voodoo queen, the voodoo, but now she's like the Bayou fairy godmother is the classification on her now with this attraction being canonized.
And there's no John Lasseter to come in and change it to 2D animation there to make it fit with what everyone's image of the Princess and the Frog should be.
Right.
Well, that being said, is there anything else you want to show us that's busted on this ride that is the second version of this ride that Disney has ever done?
Well,
Actually, the fifth if you want to count all the versions of Splash Mountain they've done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That was all of the footage that I was able to accrue, at least at this time period. I'm sure there will be, like the Walt Disney World version, I'm sure there's going to be audio animatronic breakdowns and so forth and stuff not moving or T-posing or something like that. I have no doubt about this. I was hopeful that with a lot of the electronic improvements they were making to the mount itself, that they would have overcome these issues. But when you have, epileptic seizure, voodoo fairy godmother or Bayou godmother in this instance, it doesn't give me a lot of hope. We are seeing that it is having the same amount of downtime similar to the Walt Disney World version. I will say, because we don't have restraints over at Disneyland that we do have at Walt Disney World, that perhaps the evacuation procedures could be sped up because of that. You don't have to actually key everybody out, but it remains to be seen on that. But given the first couple of days of previews with the amount of shutdowns that it has, I was notified that yesterday's previews didn't go much better. I think it broke down multiple times. They took a ride that worked for 35 years and they've completely destroyed it.
Well,
again,
now, in Disney's defense, though, there are some rides that it takes them a little while to figure out how to get this thing working and have consistent uptime and not have frequent stops. So I just want to ask you, what one of the more recent attractions that took a very long time to be in complete working order was Rise of the Resistance. Now, that one opened up in Disneyland in 2020 and late 2019 for the Hollywood Studios version. For the Hollywood Studios version, how long has it taken for that one to be fully operational in a way that doesn't have frequent shutdowns to where guests are waiting in line at random intervals and having frequent stops?
I mean, it probably has taken the bulk of the 4 years it's really been in existence. I mean, I would say too that it's probably never been at the level of consistent uptime that they've expected for that attraction. And we actually just got notified that I guess 7 attractions were down simultaneously in Magic Kingdom, which, all of those attractions being on the older end of the scale right there. Rise of Resistance is interesting because it's a Wi-Fi controlled ride. So if those vehicles are out of alignment, even just a micro inch, they'll shut down. During like the airlock scene in which things get blown out, if your hat goes flying and it ends up on the track and gets run over, that will shut it down. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that will shut that ride down due to its immense complexity. Splash Mountain, it's a log flume. Log flumes have been in existence since the 1960s. There should be no reason why it shuts down as much as it does, and yet it does.
And yet it does. That being said, we want to throw this to our commenters. Were you expecting Disney to have figured this out by this point? How to get a log flume running? A log flume in animatronics that don't affect the movement of the logs. Should those affect whether or not the log flumes function? I don't know. Would love your thoughts in the comment section down below this video. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Plays for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.